Welcome to Unselfishly Me, a podcast all about self-love, self-care, and everything in between. I'm Jane, a personal trainer with a focus on self-love. Each week, we'll be chatting to someone about their self-love journey, how long it took, and what it took to get there. Today's guest is Alison, and she is from Surrender Story and Guided Life by Design with her partner Melissa. Today I'm just talking to Alison, and it has been the most incredible conversation. I am so excited for you to hear this. We touched on human design because that's what they do, but also about surrendering in life and self-love as well. It has been so fascinating talking to someone who was a nurse in the pandemic and who stopped being a nurse in the pandemic and trusted her gut and trusted her instincts and surrendered her story. It was so exciting to chat to her, and I can't wait for you to hear Alison. So welcome, Alison. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Jane. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. So I'm Alison Van De Pol. I live in Iowa in the U.S. And for those of you who don't know where that is, just if you can picture the U.S., I'm pretty much smack dab in the middle. And I'm surrounded by farmland and fields. And so I am a mom of two littles, and I have three older stepchildren. I'm also a wife. And but beyond that, I really feel like I am just a soul here trying to surrender to my soul's journey and my purpose. And so far that has taken me through becoming a registered nurse, a holistic health coach. Now my focus is as a human design specialist and just helping others surrender to their own soul journey.
Love that. And so there's usually two of you that work in this business together. So because of my time difference, we are connecting today, which is super exciting. So we'll be talking about your journey, and then we'll be bringing in a little bit about both of you together later as well for everyone. So what does self-love mean to you?
I really think that love itself is the highest energetic expression. So for me, love in itself is the highest energy. And whether we're receiving that from the divine or from God, from the highest power, whoever you think that is, I refer to as God. But I think that's love. I think the love that we, in its truest essence, give out to others and receive from others. So when it comes to self-love, to me, that is when I give myself that highest expression of energy, that it's for me and it's from me. That's to me what self-love is.
I've never actually thought to ever look at that. What is the levels of consciousness, hey, where it says that love is, and you always want to live love and above. And I never actually thought of it to even think of it in that way, but it actually makes so much sense. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So what has your self-love journey looked like?
Oh my goodness. It's been a road for sure. I look back and I think that even as far back as I can possibly remember, I feel like there was this pull towards self-love. Like I wanted it. I knew that it was in me, but actually the journey to discovering that and to really starting to live it and embody it, I think all of that, all along the way, was actually self-love. But most of it, a lot of it at least, looked honestly more like self-harm, if I'm being completely honest, because I went through, a lot of valleys and still go through them. But I do believe that entire journey was my journey to self-love. And so in some ways, I feel like it was very evolutionary, like it happened really quite slowly, and it was an evolving process. But then all of a sudden it just came on, like I would say in the last few years. And in that sense, it feels more revolutionary because it was like this massive shift where all of a sudden it just clicked and I just started to really get it. And it's just been the most beautiful process.
I think that's something, and I love it when I ask that question and then so many of you are actually honest and you give the answer that you feel like, oh, I shouldn't be saying this, where there's a lot of people that won't be honest and say that because everyone's sitting at home nodding their heads like, yes, no one's journey has been perfect. And I mean, I wouldn't even have this podcast if everyone loved themselves. Let's be honest. Like,
Yeah.
we're here to talk about our journeys and to be honest so that other people don't feel so alone and they know this is normal. It's literally a journey. It's not going to end. And then you go through motherhood, if you go through motherhood, or you go through breakups, or you move countries, or you move jobs, and everything ebbs and flows, that it's never going to be perfect climbing over that mountain and you're going to get to the other side. We're always going to be up and down throughout all the stages of your life. So I love that you're honest in saying that, because it really is. I always watch even myself and we always kind of go like sheepish, like, oh yeah, it hasn't been great. Because it hasn't. There's no one it's been like perfect. So I really love when you're honest like that.
Well, and I think what you said though too is like, it's actually being able to be transparent and really being able to really own it. Because without that, if you can't even tell yourself the truth and honestly start to share it with others, that's really what I think I'm here for. So, and honestly start to share it honestly and transparently and authentically as possible with other people. There's a meditation I do quite often that talks about, from the greatest pain, there's room for the greatest growth and expansion. And so I think that the more we can really own that and really just come to terms with that, that is how we grow and expand. And that's actually what I'm here to do. I think that's what we're all here to do. So
yeah, it's a community, and like we're speaking to our tribe and hoping someone will listen and take something from that.
Yeah.
Oh, love that. So what self-love practices do you do each day?
Okay, well, I have quite a few these days. And it's not something that just happened overnight, but definitely like in the last few years, like I said, there's just kind of been this massive shift. And so just very practically and logically, I do things like every single morning I wake up and I have my lemon water, and then I do my sun salutation stretch, and I have an affirmation that I say every single day, and then I get my coffee, which is a very important part of my self-love. And then other like just practices that I have, I do a sauna almost every day. And in that sauna, I do dry brushing and prayer, meditation, singing, journaling. Just there's a lot that I do because I'm usually in there, to be honest, for about 2 hours.
Wow.
So that, I know it's pretty incredible and it's pretty crazy. But I have a very supportive and understanding husband, and I get up early. So that's just been part of my routine that I really treasure, and it's hard for me to go without it. And so that's those practical tools that I do that I consider to be self-love. I exercise, daily, but just more high level than that. My practice of self-love, what I consider it to be, is just giving myself time each day to do what I call turn in and tune in, because that's where I find my truth. That's where I believe that, in my soul is where I collide with my creator, and it's where that highest expression of love is always found. And so that, in its deepest sense, but it's also actually pretty simple, is just turning in and tuning in as part of my self-love.
I love that. I know you looked, those who aren't watching the video, you kind of we did that whole sheepish, I know, almost thinking the 2 hours is self-indulgent, but I'm just how nice to be warm in a sauna for 2 hours. I mean, I live in South Africa. It's really hot, but even in our winter now, I mean, it's winter and I'm sitting here in a sleeveless top, but it's so nice. And it's not you're just lying there, you're doing all these things. So you're actually being productive because you're doing your meditation in there, you're doing your journaling, you're doing everything in there. It must be such, I've never heard anyone who talking about saunas. I mean, I used to work at a gym, so I knew that, but obviously you're in Iowa, you've got the space there to have it. But that must be such an interesting experience to be in a sauna, to be doing your meditation and everything there. I'm so intrigued. Does it feel different than doing it like in your room or something? Is it the heat? Is there something about the heat or anything that intensifies it for you, the whole process? Or does it feel like a ritual because you've created it in that way?
Well, I think because I'm a mom and a wife,
Mm.
and there's chaos around all the time, in the best way that I absolutely love. But it does feel like a retreat. It feels like a sanctuary for me. I also, I do things outside. I attend church. I do other things, but it does feel like my sanctuary. And I know I kind of like shrunk a little bit when I said 2 hours. And it's only because I think that there is that judgment around even people who believe in all of this, who think, oh, wow, must be nice. Or wow, like I've had people within my own family who say, like, isn't that a little selfish? Or like, okay, it's great that you're turning in, but when do you actually turn out and help people? And so I think that's where it comes from. I fully embrace and accept and love that 2 hours. And I really, truly believe to my core that that is what helps me be the best mom, the best wife, the best, entrepreneur who can serve others. Um, it's just that not everyone thinks that way. And I think that that's where that kind of shrinking comes from. But yeah, to answer your question, it's completely amazing. And there is something about physically, this, but with a far infrared sauna, you're releasing, you're actually detoxifying. So there's something about that too, that while I'm meditating, while I'm praying, while I'm singing, while I'm journaling, there's this toxin release physically happening every day.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I've had a long health journey, so it's very healing, and it's very much part
It
of that.
sounds amazing. I'm almost picturing like it almost looks and feels like a little mini log cabin that you like going into and having your own little retreat. Like it's amazing.
It is amazing. Yes. That's a
But
great way to
this
think of it.
Yeah, it's so cute, like your little cozy cabin. Just to touch on that, because I just want to reiterate that exactly what you said. Even with me, I have started in February. I host retreats and stuff, and I'm always giving other people retreats. And in February, I started a solo night retreat for myself. So every 3 months, I go away for a night. So the Midlands here I live in Durban, South Africa. So it's very leafy and green. It's an hour and a half away. So I get in my car and I drive that hour and a half. And it's very much like almost like the mountains, like, lots of forests and very green. And there's like little coffee shops and quaint little, like in the countryside. So I go and I have like a full day and then a night, and then I leave like mid-morning the next day and come home. So this is my third time doing it. I just got back on Monday. And people were like, why are you doing that? And they're like, I could never do that. I'm like, you don't even have like yeah, like your child is 10. Like mine has just turned 3. And I've been going since she was like 2.5. Like, what are you going on about? Like, stop making excuses. You can do it, especially if you've got like family and like a husband that are really supportive. Like you just need to actually be honest with yourself and put the time into you. And exactly with your 2 hours, like if you broke it up into your day and you did it like your journaling and you did it all, it would still end up being like an hour and a half at least, but you would be doing it in the early morning or the evening or whenever it is. But the same people who say, oh, that's so much time are the same people that are sitting for 2 hours on TikTok and Instagram.
All about your priorities. And I will tell you, I have some of the people that I love the most who are saying the same thing. I could never do that. Well, actually, you can do anything that you prioritize. And so I prioritize myself. And and I'll talk a little bit about this in just a minute, but I love that you go away and do that. That is something that I absolutely want to do. My business partner and I, we also do retreats. And we have started extending our retreats on both ends to allow ourselves a retreat as well. But on this note, we're going to get to this in a little bit, I think. But as part of my story, my last year has been one, for the books for sure. My whole life has been upended. And so when I say sauna and you're picturing this incredible experience in space, it is. But I sold my home where I had a dedicated gym and sauna space. So it started out, I moved it. I would not go without it. We downsized by a third. So we're now in a third of our living space. It's tight quarters. And I said, I won't go without my sauna. So we moved it into our garage. In the moving process, the only thing that was broken was the glass door to my sauna. So I don't have a door now. I won't do it until we move into our new house because I don't want it to happen again. So I have a towel. So this is the real part of all of this. I have a towel hanging to shield me, which my kids open often. In the winter in Iowa, it gets so cold. I mean, negative, freezing for months on end. I could no longer sweat in my garage because it wasn't warm enough. So we moved it into our bedroom, which is also our office. So, like you just said, you can have an excuse, and that's okay if that's where you're at in your journey. But you're the only person who can actually override those excuses and decide that this is what you want to do for you and for everyone around you. And for me, that is, I will have a sauna regardless of where it is, regardless if it's not the right most ideal setting. It will be that again someday, but it's not right now. And it doesn't stop me from doing this. So I'll step down from the soapbox, but you make a really good point.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, completely. You're either going to get it done or you're going to make excuses, and then you're not going to feel great. So the only person who can actually help you start your journey and get you on that process is you. So if you're not feeling like you're ready to get off TikTok and get on the treadmill, or get off TikTok and go for a walk, or get off TikTok and sit and journal for 10 minutes. I mean, it's literally writing Dear Diary like we used to do when we were at school. It's not that hard. Then you're not going to feel better. And then the only person that you can blame is yourself. So I really love that. Thank you for sharing that, because it just shows you that you will make it happen if you wanted to, I love that. So tell us about your brand. So it is Guided Life by Design, and it's with you, yourself, and with Melissa. How did you find human design, and how did it change your life? I'm so excited for this.
Well, we always say that we are the founders of Guided Life by Design. That's our business. We are the creators of Surrender Story. And so that's a big part of our business. But yes, so I found human design. It was one of those things where, from this practice of turning in and tuning in, starting really several years ago, I just started to listen to what was within me. And I started to make decisions from that place. And something that just fell in front of me when I wasn't looking was human design. And because of my background in nursing and holistic health coaching, I was not sure on tools and theories and systems and all of these things. But when I first learned about human design, it resonated so deeply with me that I was like, I have to know more. And so I very quickly signed up for a certification program. I started studying it. And that's where I met my business partner. And I had no idea that within 9 months of starting to study human design, it was in the middle of COVID. We actually started at the beginning of COVID. And I had no idea that it would actually lead me to a career in it when I left my 20-year career during COVID, about 9 months later. So maybe even 6 months later. So yes. So now my business partner, Melissa, and I, we share human design with others because we have both found, and she's trained in a lot of other modalities, law of attraction, Reiki, very successful business person. But for both of us, we just came together and there was almost an instant connection. We call it a divine connection to not only human design, but to each other. And this is now what we do, share this with others and help people really turn in and tune in to who they were created to be through retreats and programs and, all of those things. So.
Oh, I love that.
Did I answer your question? I think I forgot part of it.
You did, but I can't remember. We're going to talk about Surrender Story just now, but or do you want to talk about the business part of it now? Because we'll talk about your story, or we're going to talk about now too. So tell us about the Surrender Story part of the business.
Yes. So it was so fascinating. As I said, I started this journey with human design in early 2020. And that was right when the pandemic, right when COVID was coming over to the US. I studied throughout, but because I was working as a nurse for our state health department, my role was specifically in vaccines. So when COVID hit, it was like we were a small team, all hands on deck. And on my son's first birthday, I found out that we would be working indefinitely every single day. We were needed every day, whatever we could give, however much time. And I did that to the best of my ability for as long as I could until I just knew I couldn't do it. And I realized, and my husband realized, that I couldn't give everything to my work while also trying to give everything to my family. And it's not that you have to do both of those, but indefinitely, we didn't know what that meant. And I mentioned this earlier, I'd had a pretty long health journey to getting to where I was. And I had a long road to actually starting a family and meeting my husband and everything. So there came a point where I thought, you know what, my health and my family are far more important to me than my work. And it's not that I don't care about the people that we're serving, but there are so many people who actually always wanted my job. There are very few of us. People were always asking me if we were hiring more people or how they could do what I do. And so I thought it's time to let one of those people step in and do what they want to do, while I tend to my health and my family. And really, I knew deep down that there was a soul calling for me to step out and do something else. And I knew that if honestly, if the universe didn't intervene, and sort of forced me to do this, that I was going to spend the rest of my career in this role. And I knew that's not what I actually came here to do. So I mentioned that this was sort of a surrender story, and I don't even know where that phrase came from. But one morning in my turning in and tuning in, my whole ritual practice, that phrase surrender story just came to me. And so I quickly Googled, we talk about technology, right? I quickly Googled and I looked on Instagram, is the phrase hashtag surrender story, is that anything? Nothing, less than 100 hashtags. Looked everywhere, nothing. And so I kind of thought, I wonder what this is all about. I wonder why I'm feeling drawn to this phrase surrender story. And later that day, my business partner, we had a business meeting and she had said, I really feel like we need to tell others this part of the journey, not the success. Yes, the success is coming and we know that, but it's really easy to talk about the success because it's fun and it's, it builds your ego, honestly, and it inspires others and all of these things. But the surrender is really the part that we need to be sharing with people to inspire them to go through their own surrender story. She didn't say surrender story. And I said, you mean like a surrender story? And so on the same day, we basically came up with the same concept. Months later, we actually found out that in human design, together we form what's called the surrender channel. And when two people form a channel in human design, it's a strength. It's an electromagnetic connection and it's a strength. So we later found out that we formed the surrender channel together. So this just really feels like what we're here to do. And what that means to us is surrendering to our design, to something greater than us, that we believe that we were divinely created this way. And that when we live this way, that's how we live the most fulfilling life. And sharing this with others, the world is not short on success stories. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with success stories. But, we're talking about social media. You open Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, and it's just like everybody's living their best lives. And we don't often see the surrender that comes before that success. And that's really what we feel inspired to share with people, to help people live and walk through that. Because we talked about people who say, I could never do that. Well, actually, anybody can do anything. It's just that it might be hard. It might be uncomfortable. It might take time. It might take living in that space between where you were and where you're going. And that's your surrender. So that's what surrender story is all about.
Oh, I love that. That's so, when things like that, people might think this is crazy, but when you find a hashtag that has less than 100 posts, it happened to me as well with Unselfishly Me, and that's how I got the name. I mean, I'm in South Africa. The .com was available. I mean, that is insane.
Oh, yes. Yes.
The Instagram name was available, Facebook. The hashtag had been used, I think, 3 times.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable how it came, like, and that was also like a divinely guided thing, because my kinesiologist and I were testing other names, and then she was explaining, she's like, I don't know what it is, but I'll explain it to you. And she was just saying, like, I feel like I want to come train with you, but feel selfish, and I just blurted out unselfishly me. Like, it literally, I was lying on her plinth on the bed, and I just went, and then I went and literally searched everything, bought all the domains. But I mean, I know exactly how it feels when you find something like that. And especially, and we have to be talking about the hashtag. I mean, social media is huge now, but the fact that there was under 100 people that have used that hashtag, that's when you know that it's meant for you. Because it's
And if you
literally,
look
it's
up like success story,
mm,
hashtag success story, that's like, million or whatever. It's crazy. And
mm,
so it's like, yes. And it's so funny. We did the same thing, but the domain, but it wasn't, surrender story wasn't on anything. And so you're right. I love when it's like you have that divine knowing and then you have the evidence that
mhm.
it's really meant to be.
Yeah, for sure. That is so exciting. I love that. And as you were thinking of that, I was thinking, oh, it's so nice, because it also, that just the wording and everything you're talking about, it lends itself to being super authentic about yourself. That I was just thinking about TikTok while you were talking. I'm like, why don't, and living their best life. I was like, you know what? You've inspired me. I'm going to make a TikTok and an Instagram reel about my boring day. And instead of showing all the highlights, like, oh, I'm sitting at my desk doing this, I'm actually going to piece together. I'm going to do that for one day and show how boring and unglamorous my life is. You've inspired me. I promise I'm going to do it. And I'm going to help tag you and be like,
Time
let's start a new
yes.
trend. My actual
Yes.
boring day, like how unglamorous my life is, even though you'll see the pictures and think it's glamorous. I think if more people did that, we'd all feel much better about ourselves.
100%. Yes.
Yeah, I love that. I just love everything that you guys are doing. So it's just a question when I was thinking about what I wanted to ask you. And because human design, I mean, there's so much I could ask. I mean, we were just chatting before we even started, and we were just so excited. Um, do you find with human design a certain type experiences burnout more than others, or is it like a lot more deeper than that? Because I've never actually thought of this question until I started reading up, and then I was like, I actually wonder. Okay, I'm manifesting generator, so maybe that's why I'm impartial to thinking these things. But then we have certain energy that others don't, and they want to try and have that energy. So, are there certain types that will experience burnout more than others?
That is honestly a fabulous question. It's the first time I've ever been asked that.
Oh,
And I think it's really, really good. I think it actually comes down to this. So, for listeners who don't know this, in human design, there are 4 different types. And all of these types have a special gift that they were created to bring to the world. We all have roles that we play within this lifetime on our own path and as a collective. So that's what you're talking about when you're talking about types. And I really think that it actually comes down to not so much the type, but how much you're living in alignment.
mm,
So for you, you're a manifesting generator. Manifesting generators and generators, I like to use a movie analogy. And in that analogy, we have the producers of the movie, the people who get the inspiration and put it out there so that it can be brought to life. And they're only about 8 or 9% of the population, and they're manifestors. And that's what I am. And
ooh,
then the producers, though, obviously, like the producers don't create the whole movie. They can't create the whole movie. They're not here to do that. So they pass it off to the directors of the film. And the directors are guiding the whole process to make sure that it actually, comes to fruition. And in human design, those people are called projectors, and they're only 20% of the population. And their gift to the world is to guide. And then we have the life force energy of the film, which you are generators, manifesting generators. We kind of group those all together because everybody in that category, their gift to the world is their work. So in the film analogy, they're all the people that it takes to make this happen. And they're the actors and the set crew and the design and the costume designers and the makeup artists. And, you're all unique in your own way. It's not like you're all doing the same work, but you're all part of that life force energy that it takes to actually bring us to life. And then on the flip side, on the back side, there are the critics of the film. And, there are very few of them, and they do their best work at the end, and they kind of discern and show us what went well and what didn't, so that as we move forward and evolve and grow and expand and do this again, we can get better. And so in human design, those people are called reflectors, and they're only 1% of the population. And their gift to the world is discernment. So if you think about how we all work, whenever you're not working in alignment with your design, whenever you're not actually listening to your body's inner wisdom, and you're moving forward on your path in that way, anytime you're doing that, that can lead to burnout. So for you, for a manifesting generator, it's all about work. You're giving your gift to the world as your work, and you should be feeling satisfied in what you're doing. And if you're not, you're feeling really frustrated, and using your energy in a way that isn't aligned is going to lead to burnout. It's just going to. You have enough energy to get up and do whatever you're supposed to do that day if you're doing work that's aligned and you love what you're doing, you're feeling satisfied. But if you're not, you're going to end up burnout on the couch without energy because you're not using your energy in the right way. That is the same for every single type. It's just that every single type has a little bit different way that they are created to use their energy, if that makes sense.
I've never heard of it explained in the movie way, and it makes so much sense. And I think it's also for people who don't know a lot about human design, it like allows you to really think of it. Oh, so interesting, you're a manifestor. I think I've only met one other person that I know that's a manifestor. Yeah.
I honestly cringed a little bit when I found that out. I was like, no, I don't want to be a manifestor. But I really started to embrace it and love it.
Yeah. And I think that for those listening, if you go and you find out what you are. So you need to know your time of birth, your place of birth, and your time, place, date, obviously, yes. Birthday. I was like, what is the other thing? So you have to know those things to be accurate, much like your astrology as well. But don't fall into the trap of just going and finding that out and reading it off the body graph, or then going and following all the accounts on Instagram, because you won't understand it. It's much more in depth than that. I had a friend who will be listening to this, but she is a projector, and like I looked up, she's like, I don't resonate with projector. Like, I don't think I am. Like, I think she thought she was maybe a generator or a manifesting generator. And she's like, I just don't resonate with all these things that I'm seeing. I'm like, please book a reading. And so she had a reading, and she was like, oh, okay, I get it now. I'm like, you guys are like you guide us. Like, why would you not want to be the guide? Like, yes. That's what you do. You're so good at that. So then afterwards, like, now every time I see something, I'll send it to her, like, projector. And she's like, I love that. Yes. So you really need to have a reading, and, save up for one and really prioritize it. Once you know your human design and then your astrology as well, like, honestly, it changes your life, because you know who you are and why you're meant to be like this. And, oh, I am meant to be like that. And everyone always says that I'm this and I'm that, and they make it a negative. It's actually a positive. It's a strength of yours that they are seeing as a weakness, and you just need to embrace it. So, like, you really do find who you are when you know your human design, and just like there's so much that goes into it. That's why, like, all of you who've studied it, I'm like in awe of you, because there's so much to know, like all the different circuits and the channels and the gates. And you can literally you and your friend can be manifesting generator, a 4/6, like I'm a 4/6 profile, the same thing with the same authority, but you have different gates and channels, and so you're still completely different. It's actually so fascinating.
It really is. You're right. Yeah. You just nailed it. I love that, because we have found that people hear about it and then they read a little bit about it and they think it's really fascinating and interesting, but then it kind of like, that's it. And so what we are really helping people do, and that's why we do retreats. That's one of our very favorite things to do, or like longer programs, because it's actually about embodying it and living it. And that is where you see the most miraculous and magical, life-changing things that you would just mind-blowing stuff. But yeah, it's more than just information that's fascinating and interesting.
Yeah, I say to people, like, if you're gonna, even if you don't have the money, but for your birthday and Christmas and your family don't know what to get you, like, get you a voucher to someone. Literally, because it literally is the gift that keeps on giving, because you have your chart. I mean, like, we were talking earlier before and you're asking me and couldn't remember. And I went into my email because I've flagged it in my email, my chart and everything and my reading. And I will go, and I promise you at least once a week, I go back to it because I'll see something on Instagram and someone's talking about a certain gate and they're doing a whole reel on it. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I have that. Let me go and check. You go back and forth all the time. And so you always learning and growing. And then maybe you have a job and then you feeling like maybe I feel very stuck. Maybe I should leave, but why don't I feel this way? You can go in there and check what channels and gates and all that stuff and be like, oh, I have that. No wonder I have this loyalty to this company that treats me like crap. Like there's so many things where you're like, oh, my husband has that channel where you just know of knowing or whatever it is called. I can't remember what it is, but you don't know why you know, but you just know. And he's like been watching all the Bitcoin and stuff, and he's not into it, but he watches it because he actually has a finance degree that he doesn't use, and he's a projector. And I'm like, trust yourself. There's a reason, he's like, well, if I had just put this much, even if it's 10,000 Rand, he's like, if I put this on there, I would have made this much money. I'm like, you've said that to me 3 times now. Like, you need to trust. You need to finish reading your report and you need to trust. You have that gate of knowing. Like, you don't know why you know it, but you know it. You need to start trusting it. So like little things like that.
Surrender to it. Surrender to your design, and crazy, magical, miraculous things will happen.
I love that. I think it's important. Yes, surrender is a good word. We need to use it more. Just a quick little interlude here. If you're enjoying this episode, I would love to reach a lot more people and help them on their journey back to themselves. So if you could do me a favor, and most of you are listening on your phone, can you just press pause and head to the share button and send this to a friend that you think might enjoy it? It really does help me to reach more people, and it helps me to be able to help them and for them to then carry on their journey of self-love. Thank you. So how can you create thriving holistic health using human design? I thought this was so fascinating because I think people don't know that with human design, you can also look at the way you're meant to eat, the way you're meant to sleep, all those things that, really impact your life on a daily basis.
Yes. And so I really think that what it boils down to, you're good. You just nailed it again, that we look at all of these things outside of us, and the world, we all know this, is not short on information, tools, tricks, the latest fad, the latest hype, all of that. And it's confusing. You're looking outside going, okay, that's working for that person. Oh, this is the new thing. Oh, that might work for me. And it's like, how do you actually achieve true health for you? And you are so uniquely and miraculously created. And how do you actually achieve that? By looking outside to other people and see what they're doing and seeing what's working for them. All that's going to probably do is pull you off your path. So what I like about human design is, and I said this earlier, I'm trained, as are many people, in hundreds of different modalities and tools. But what sets human design apart, and why this is now my foundation for the way that I live, is that it actually has you turn in and tune into yourself. You learn how you are created. And this is another thing that happened where I was sitting one day and I was thinking, it gives you permission to be who you were created to be. And I did a client call later that day, and she said, she was her first time learning about it. And she said, I just feel like all of this is me and I've known it, but you're just it's giving me permission to live it. And so I think that's the key, is even as a human design specialists and coaches, and we are not telling you how to live, because nobody can tell you that except when you turn it. We're telling you how you are designed. And when you start to apply that, and it really becomes experiential, which is why I said, like, it's about embodying it. That's when you really start to see. But when you understand how you're designed, and when you can start to live that and experiment with it, you actually don't need those things outside of yourself. And that's where you find that holistic health, where your body I don't know if you know this, but in human design, they're deep, deep layers. Like you said, it's really deep, and you get into the gates and the channels. There's a really deeper layer level that is the 4 radical transformations, or it's called the primary health system. And it teaches you how you're designed to eat and kind of digest life and food, how you're designed, what environment you're meant to be in. So all of those things are contained within human design, but you don't even actually have to, it's interesting to know those things, but as you start to live as you're designed, you will start to naturally eat the way you're designed to eat, live the way you're designed to live. You're going to be drawn to the environment that that you do the best in. So it really is holistic health in just a different way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. I listened to a podcast once about who should be sleeping in the same beds and stuff. And I think was it projectors that their aura is quite big. And then I think it was that I think it was like manifesting generators should sleep by themselves. I can't remember if it's my energy or if it was the projector's energy that their aura is quite big.
Well, the way we learned, and we learned directly through, oh my gosh, I'm like trying to think of it, the International Human Design School, like that's the teaching that we follow. It actually says that everyone's aura is the same. It's about 15 feet spanning, but the aura for each type is different. So projectors is penetrating. So the aura is penetrating into you. Manifesting generators, it's enveloping. So it's drawing in other people's auras. Manifestors like me, the aura is repelling and impactful. So everybody's aura is, from what I understand, about the same size. It's about 15 feet with. So what we've always been told is that actually everyone should sleep alone and everyone should spend time in their own aura. My business partner does practice this. I do not. I mean, I get time in my own energy for sure. And I notice when I don't. And so that's really important, but I don't sleep alone. But yeah, but it's all about your aura and your energy and how you impact others and how they impact you. And if you don't have that time away, you're going to confuse your energy with other people's. And that's where that not living, thriving in a holistic health can come from, because you're taking on other people's energy and you're kind of confusing it for your own. And you need to be in your own energy to understand, to draw in the right things, to do the right work, to make the right decisions. So yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. Oh my God. No wonder you find you're like repelling. You're like, get away from my aura.
I know, but when I heard that, I was like, that's what I said. I don't want to be a manifestor, but I now have totally embraced it. But yeah, to hear that your aura is repelling, you're like, but it's just because it's a very strong, impactful aura, because manifestors are the producers. They're here to get the inspirations and kind of get everything going. So they're also kind of called the lone wolf. They're always kind of out a little bit ahead of the pack. And so if we don't live with our energy correctly, we can actually face a lot of resistance from other people, because this is all energetic. It's not even spoken. They feel that our energy is impactful and repelling. And so it's like people try to push it down or get away from it. But there are things that you can do in all of the energy types and in all of the auras to work with your aura correctly, so that you don't face, that stuff that's less pleasant.
I love that. It almost feels like a boundary, like you guys are actually good with boundaries and like that boundary line, or maybe just you need to learn to enforce them as well.
Yeah, I think with but you have to realize too, we've had a lifetime of conditioning at this point. So boundaries have not been one of my strengths. Although I'm definitely, as part of my self-love and my, turning in and tuning in, definitely getting better at setting boundaries and enforcing them.
Yeah, you've got your 2-hour boundary, which not many people will set. So you have to give yourself some credit for that one.
Yes.
So, oh gosh, I've just been loving that. So you talk about the surrender story. So for you, we've covered that as well. But do you think that you really had to surrender to saying no to nursing? Or do you think that the pandemic, like I think a lot of nurses actually resigned from what I was reading about the US, and, you weren't being compensated properly, or the hours, that was ridiculous. You can't work 7 days a week in a pandemic and be like, oh, indefinitely, like talk about boundaries. Like At least be like, okay, 7 days a week for 3 weeks, and then you have a week off or whatever the case, rotate it or something. But I know a lot of people from who I was following on social media, I followed some nurses over there, and it was just like ridiculous. So do you think that the timing kind of, like you said, the universe was like intervening because you maybe weren't listening? But do you find that you really had to surrender to saying no, or was it quite like an easy yes to leave?
Oh gosh, it was not easy at all.
Mm.
I had to surrender, and I didn't know. And the thing is, the founder of Human Design, Ra Uru, he talks about this, that it's almost like you can't you can't do it. We talked about a little bit this about with your incarnation cross. You can't do it when your ego's still saying, I'm going to do this because of this, and this is how this is going to play out. That actually doesn't work. So I say I did it unknowingly. I just knew, and I just knew that I was supposed to do this, but it was the hardest thing I had ever done. Now that says a lot about my life. I've lived, like I said, I had health challenges. I had, from my 20s to 30s, I had 5 surgeries. I had an ostomy where like you have a bag on the outside of your body. So I've had challenges, my own form of challenges. And this was the hardest thing I'd ever done,
Sure.
or so I thought.
Mhm.
So leaving my career, because I don't know if I said this earlier, but I was the breadwinner for our house. I had the majority of the income. My husband was kind of a Mr. Mom, and we chose that. And then he worked a little bit on the side just to kind of keep us comfortable and have fun. So I was the breadwinner of the home. I carried all of the benefits, and I didn't really have a plan. So to quit a job and feel like you're going to put your entire family potentially at risk financially, that was difficult. But we both knew, and there was just this level of knowing and this level of trust, but it's still hard. So when I did that, I mean, tears, physical symptoms, sick to my stomach, like just really, but I just still knew. And so it took massive surrender and massive trust. And that was, like I said, that was the hardest thing I did. However, 6 weeks later, we had a knock on our door. In the middle of the pandemic, no one was out. No one was out. It was at the height. The middle of winter in Iowa, snow all over, no one leaves their home, regardless of whether or not there's a pandemic. Somebody knocked on our door and said, your house is our dream house. Could we buy it from you? And I was like, okay, God, all right, universe. Like, I just did the hardest thing I've ever done. And now you're going to ask me to do something even harder. So, long story short, we actually did sell our home. And moving week, I'm Googling like legal ramifications for backing out of your home sale. Like, I didn't pack because I was so distraught. We didn't have another place to go because we just were trusting and surrendering. We were actually, I didn't realize it until just very recently, we were homeless for a week. We literally did not have a home. Now, and then we got settled into the space that I'm in right now, in a new townhouse. We have a plan. We're building a new home. It's all working out even better than I could have imagined. But we just got settled in here, and my father passed away unexpectedly. So in 9 months, I quit my 20-year career totally unexpectedly. Sold our home completely unexpectedly, and my dad passed away unexpectedly. And so, was it difficult? Yes. Was it terrifying? Yes. But was it also the most rewarding journey so far that I could have ever imagined? 100%. And I wouldn't change it for anything, because number one, I found out just how tough I can be mentally and all of those things. But also, I have gone to places in the world, in the US, that I never would have been without doing this.
Mm.
I've met people that I never would have met. I have had experiences and conversations, and it truly feels like this is actually how I'm supposed to be living, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's hard. And so, yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but
Yeah.
I think the surrender was hard, and it can be so hard, but it can also just be the most rewarding thing. We talk a lot. I like to use the peaks and the valleys. And you have to have all of that on your journey. Like, how boring would it be to just be safe and secure, but never leave this location?
Yeah.
But when you travel, when you go on a path, you're going to go down the valley and you're going to see the most amazing thing that you know, could have seen from the depths of emotion and despair and thinking like, this is so hard, I can't even do this. And then you're going to keep climbing and you're going to get to a mountaintop where you see a view that you is beyond like anything you could have ever imagined. And if you would have stayed where you were because it was safe and secure, you never would have experienced any of that. So yeah.
I do angel card readings and stuff. So I'm a little bit mainstream and a little bit woo-woo.
Yep.
And I do this thing, I started doing this thing once a month, a live, I call it the Spirit Seeker. So it's a live 30-minute workshop on Zoom. And they can watch me. I use my pendulum and I pick one of my 10, 12, however many I have, decks. And then from the deck, they watch me whittle it down to the card for the collective. So we did one last night. So the way that you're talking about peaks and valleys, I was talking about ebbs and flows of life last night. And the card was from the Spirit Animal deck. And it was about the wasp spirit. And it comes to tell you like life is stinging you right now. But sometimes the sting is actually like for you, not to you. You know how the universe does things for you, not to you. And like sometimes maybe you are so stagnant and you don't want to move because you're scared, and like you have to get that sting that is like, ouch, okay, let me move across. And so when I was almost like channeling the message, or I always like just ad lib of what I think the card represents. So I was talking about that and how, sometimes we always going through ebbs and flows in life, and we need to lean into that, but also allowing yourself to feel the emotions that you're going through all the different phases of your life and how you are, because we're always suppressing the emotions and trying to pretend we're okay when we're not, and how we need to like lean into those valleys and the peaks. And actually, when you are down there, just like being like, okay, I'm down here, like looking around and acknowledging I'm at the bottom here, but I know I'm going up. So just allowing yourself to feel where you are at that moment and move through that. So it was so interesting when you're saying that as well, because that literally came up last night, and we were talking about how we need to like surrender to the path, and to, sometimes you need to get stung. And the interesting thing that the card was saying, when you read in the book, was saying that the pain that we're feeling, it's only painful the more we talk about the pain. So, when you get, they're saying like when you get stung by a wasp or a bee, whatever, it's only sore because we keep talking about how sore it is, and you keep talking about the pain to the next person, or like, oh, I got stung by a wasp, it's so painful. And then you remember how painful it is. But if you actually like obviously talk to yourself about the pain and talk about it, but the more you move through it and you just flow with that ebb and the flow and move with the changes, then you're not recalling how painful it was. It's quite interesting.
It is, yeah. Yeah, like you can feel it, but you don't have to dwell on it. And when you allow it to move you forward, now if you can allow yourself, your focus becomes on the new things that you're seeing and feeling and doing, and you forget about the pain.
Yeah, I love that. It was so interesting. Oh, I've been loving this conversation. What is one thing you wish you could tell younger you?
Oh my gosh. So you just mentioned this, and I know that this is a very common and popular saying, but really, I wish I could go back and say that this journey really is for you, and it's all going to work out if you can just trust and surrender. And I would tell my younger self to really find as much joy in the journey as possible. I would actually say lighten up a little bit, Alison, because I'm so serious and I love that side of me, but like just find the joy and find the happiness and find the laughter and the fun along the way, and lighten up a little bit.
I love that. I think that we all could do with some lightening up.
Yeah.
So where can everyone find you?
Okay, so we're on social media. We're on Instagram under Surrender Story. We are on Facebook. We have a community. It's at Guided Life by Design, and so that's where our community is. You're mentioning TikTok. I have one post on TikTok, and it was my Surrender Story kickoff. Ooh. And I haven't been drawn to it yet. So you can find one post on Surrender Story, but we're there. And when we feel inspired, we will add to that. But we currently use the other platforms a little bit more. The other thing is for people who want to run their charts, you mentioned that you need your date of birth, your time, and your location. But you can actually go to chart.guidedlifebydesign.com. And we have, because you said, like, don't just run it and then read about it. We have just a little bit of our own kind of series that we've created to help people start to step into their design in a way that would make sense to them, just some short videos as a gift to people. So if you want to run your chart at that location, you'll get some messages from us to help you make more sense of it in a way that is a little more easily understood than the My Body Graph language, because that